Late in 1969, Aretha Franklin released the single for her song Call Me. If I say that this was the B-side of a record, will that mean anything to anybody? Okay, great. Yes. Okay, the gray hairs have it. This is good news. Yes. So this single, Call Me, was the B-side of the record Son of a Preacher Man, which interestingly was originally written for Aretha, even though Dusty Springfield was the one who made the song famous. Anyway, the B-side of Son of a Preacher Man was called Call Me. It zoomed up to the top of the R&B charts. It spent 2 weeks at #1 starting in January of 1970. It's a terrific song. The song starts out with these beautiful sweeping strings and piano, and the lyrics go like this: I love you, and I love you, and I love you too. Baby, will you call me the moment you get there? It's a beautiful, beautiful song. And there's an interview that Aretha gave after the song came out, in which she revealed that she came up with the lyrics when she was walking on Park Avenue one day, and she passed a couple who were holding each other very close in a tight, desperate goodbye hug. And those are the words that they said to each other just as she walked past. I love you, and I love you, and I love you too. Baby, will you call me the moment you get there? I've always found that song and that story to be so tender and so moving. Even today, whenever we travel, we're rarely, if ever, without our phones and without our onboard GPS trackers. Sometimes we still like to say it. Baby, call me the moment you get there. Sometimes we like to hear it, too. That last little loving touch before goodbye. Maybe you will have one of those this summer. Maybe you're sending somebody off to camp or to study. Maybe someone's heading off to start a new job. Maybe someone's going off on a long trip, or a dear friend is starting the next chapter in their professional life. Maybe you'll offer to help them with their bag. You might pack some snacks for the road, and you'll remind them to call you the moment they get there. So I thought about that Aretha Franklin song when I spent some time with our Torah portion this week for the following reason. The portion includes God's instructions to Aaron about how to light the lamps of the menorah, the 7-branched lampstand that stood in the Israelites' tabernacle in the wilderness. So when God gives the instructions to Aaron, they begin this way: Beha'alotcha et hanerot, which literally means something like, when you lift up the light of the menorah. So the medieval commentators are curious about the grammar there. It seems unnecessarily complicated. God could have just said, light the lamps. Why go through that whole convoluted language of saying, and thou shalt lift up the light of the lamps on the menorah, when something much simpler would have sufficed? So the answer they give is that God wasn't just talking about lighting the lamps. God was talking about developing a very particular skill that Aaron had to build. The great 11th century commentator Rashi explains the unusual wording this way: the real commandment to Aaron was to kindle the lamp ad shetehei shalhevet olam eleha, which means until the point where the fire can rise by itself. So Aaron has to light the wick and then keep watching it just until it catches and the flame can rise on its own without his help. That was the spiritual core of God's instruction to Aaron, what God expected of him. Knowing how to light a candle, after all, isn't a profound test of leadership or spiritual guidance, but knowing how to let go, knowing when to step back from the light you have kindled when it no longer needs you, that is a much rarer and much more valuable kind of wisdom. God wasn't teaching Aaron about how to light a candle. God was teaching Aaron how to love and how to let go. So maybe that makes you think about your kids. I know it does for me. Maybe it makes you think about some other love in your life that you have kindled and tended carefully over time with patient attention, so that eventually it's able to burn on its own. That can be a tough skill to learn. It can be a real struggle to step back and let someone else's flame rise or fall on its own. Tending the menorah in the tabernacle was one of Aaron's primary responsibilities. He knew how to prepare its wicks and its oil, how to tend it every day. He knew how it looked when it was burning strongly and when it was beginning to falter. And God's instruction to him must have made him at least a little bit nervous. What if I step back? What if I move my hands away and the flame goes out? Every parent has faced that question in one form or another. Every teacher at the end of a year, every mentor or supervisor watching an employee move on to their next opportunity. It's not irrational to feel anxious when you ponder that question. What happens when I'm not around anymore to help? That is, after all, a fear that is rooted deeply in love, but specifically in a love that has not yet learned to trust what it built. In this week's Haftarah from the book of Zechariah, the prophet Zechariah, the prophet has a vision of a menorah, the same 7-branched lamp written about in our Torah portion. And in the Haftarah, an angel comes to interpret the prophet's vision. The angel says that the image of the menorah has come to teach us that when redemption arrives, it will come about, see if this sounds familiar, not by might, not by power, but by Spirit alone. So what does all that have to do with the menorah? The answer is that the flames of the lampstand do not burn through force of will. They don't burn because someone is trying really, really hard. In fact, our tradition teaches us that the lamplighter himself is not even the ultimate source of the flame. He's only the conduit of something bright and ethereal that longs to catch fire and climb toward the heavens. The light that burns in our children, in our students, in the people we've mentored, that light in some sense was there before we ever came along to tend it. We didn't manufacture the flame. Maybe we carried something toward it that helped it catch, but the flame itself, the essential animating spark, that was already there, just waiting to glow and grow. The fear that the flame might go out if we step back rests on a misunderstanding of where the flame came from in the first place. The flame never belonged to us at all. It was always only passing through us, waiting to ascend in the ones we love. So this week I found myself thinking about that couple, the one from the Aretha Franklin song, squeezing each other tight right there out in the open on Park Avenue, telling each other goodbye. Some of us will have moments like that this summer. Some of us will be the ones who are leaving, carrying something that was kindled in us that now burns on its own, that no longer belongs to the person who gave it to us. It belongs to us, and so we take it with us, guard it the best we can, and let it give off its light in rooms we haven't even entered yet. And some of us will be the ones left behind, busying ourselves with the tiny gestures of care. Let me take your bag, sweetheart. Do you need a little money? Will you call me the moment you get there? And when they do, when the text comes pinging through that simply says, I landed, that's the symbol of a job well done. The kindling did its job, and now the flame rises by itself, even after you withdrew your hand. It is a strange thing for the completion of love to feel sometimes like loss. But make no mistake, we know that love has gone all the way through to its fullest expression when we see the brightness rising by itself inside the ones we love. Not by might, not by power, not by hovering or micromanaging, or by holding on a little bit too long, by Spirit alone, and by the loving hand of someone who has lit a spark and who knows, finally, when to step back. Loving parents, devoted teachers, as the school year ends and we arrive at the season of goodbyes, don't fail to notice the bright, determined flames going up on their own inside the ones you love. You can step back, you can open your hand, and let them rise. Shabbat shalom, everyone.